All right, let's shake things up with a little bit of a lightning round here. These are actually some tougher questions that we're going to wedge into the lightning round. 15-second answers, though, so you've really got to strike fast here. Mr. Moncharmani, would you support a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants as part of a larger deal to secure the border?
As part of a larger deal to secure the border, I would come up with a pathway only if it involved some penalties for those who are here. You can't get in line faster than those who come in legally.
Mr. Fenton.
Yes, I would support it, provided that they do not get an advantage over other people who are already ahead of them. Maybe an idea like have them leave and then come back properly, but make it easier for them to come back properly.
Senator Morse.
Yeah. No, I believe that we should make sure that we end catch and release, we build the wall, and we follow the laws that we have already in place in this country today.
Mr. Smith.
I cannot support a pathway to citizenship for anyone who came here illegally, although we do need to bring them out of the shadows, so we'd have to look for some other legal mechanism to do that. But the first starter is we have to secure our border, number one, before there's any deal on the table.
And General Bolduc.
I would not support it, and I would not support it because we need to close our border, we need to enforce legal immigration, and we need to follow those processes. No one's above the law. That includes immigrants.
All right, and next question, starting with you, General Bolduc. If Republicans control the U.S. Senate next year and there is a Supreme Court vacancy, would you allow President Biden to fill it? Yes or no?
Well, I've been clear on this, many times. I want to talk to the nominee, which I will have the opportunity to do as a senator. I want to look at their character and integrity. I want to look at their performance on the bench. I want to know how they feel about our Bill of Rights, our First Amendment, Second Amendment. I want to know how they feel on life, and I will give them the best look I can. But I have my principles, which Granite Staters send me down there to follow.
But you would support a vote on the floor?
I would.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Sure, he can bring someone forward. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to vote yes, though, on that nominee. I'm going to be looking for a nominee who has a strict constitutionalist philosophy, someone in the mold of Antonin Scalia.
Senator Morse.
Yeah, I honestly believe that there's a test there that needs to happen at any point in time. I believe they have to obviously be qualified. They have to have a past that we can read and understand and make sure that they follow the Constitution in this country and not make up things that they want to put in place at that point in time. I don't think we need to be politically correct. I think we need to make them follow a process.
But a nominee in 2023 should get a vote on the floor?
We could take a vote on the floor when we interview them.
Mr. Fenton.
Yes, it's part of our constitutional obligation to, I think, have those kind of votes. It's also part of our constitutional right to oppose, and there's quite a bit that we can do to delay or completely cancel bad nominations.
Mr. Moncharmani.
Absolutely. Of course we'd take a vote on it. Of course, dependent upon the quality and character of the nominee, but why wouldn't we?
Okay. Next question, starting with Mr. Fenton. Do you believe the Earth is warming at a worrisome pace?
I don't know enough about it to know, and I think that there's a lot of people that are in that same category who are saying otherwise. I think that the metric of temperature is concerning to me, especially because I spent a lot of my life very concerned about pollution, and we now have huge polluters, members of the World Economic Forum, other governments, our own government, our own military, who are, I'm sorry, I realize this is a shorter question.
This is a lightning round.
Sorry about that.
It's a big one, but a quick one.
Yeah, okay.
Senator Morse.
No, I don't think I know enough about it to be able to give you a yes/no answer on that process. But I can tell you this, I think the way that's being politicized in this country right now is absolutely wrong.
Mr. Smith, do you believe the Earth is warming at a worrisome pace?
Well, I believe climate change is happening, but I also believe it's scientifically cyclical as well. And right now it's being used to politicize it, to shove through socialist policies like the Green New Deal. And frankly, that's just wrong.
General Bolduc.
The climate changes. That's a fact. It's common sense. You don't need to be a scientist to figure that out. We need to act responsibly, and we will act responsibly. The problem we have is China, Russia, North Korea, Iran are the biggest polluters in the world. No one's saying anything about them. They're always pointing at us, and the United States leads the way on this. That's where we need to look at this.
Mr. Moncharmani.
Yes, the climate is definitely changing, Adam. I think the problem is in our reaction function to that change. We need to stop the climate alarmism and actually develop reasonable, common sense solutions that don't penalize Granite State families.
All right, the Senate is expected to vote in the coming weeks on a bill that would codify same-sex marriage into federal law. Would you vote for it? Yes or no, Mr. Smith?
I could support it so long as there were protections in there for religious liberty and religious freedom.
General Bolduc?
Well, again, New Hampshire's figured this one out too back in 2010, and it hasn't been a problem, and they're trying to politicize something that's not a problem. I commanded same-sex partners in my command as a general officer, and we treated them with respect, honor. They did their job, and there hasn't been a problem. Where there's problem is people are putting fuel on the fire to create problems where there isn't. New Hampshire has led the way on this, just like it's leading the way on abortion.
Senator Morse?
Yes.
Mr. Fenton?
Yeah, I support anybody's right, but I don't think government is always the solution. I'd rather have government entirely out of the marriage business, but I do support anyone's right to marry anybody they want.
All right, Mr. Moncharmani?
Certainly, yes, I would support that.